So, Materialists is the latest film from Celine Song, who previously did Past Lives, which was one of my favorite films from 2 years ago. I really love that film and how it kind of tackled the difficult aspects that come with modern romance through the distancing of time and locations and like the different people that we interact with. Materialists takes a look at romance from a much different angle. As the title implies, it focuses more on the tangible and kind of like the greed and commodification that comes with dating in the modern age. So it's very much a romantic drama, or more of like a love triangle that kind of toys with the medium while also still kind of like dabbling in what makes the genre so appealing. So at the center of the story is Lucy, played by Dakota Johnson, who used to be an actress but is now a matchmaker. And she basically looks at the world in a very mathematical way. She's used to hooking women up with men and tries to find like the best matches possible. Now, having done this profession for so long, she looks at everybody in a very specific way. She doesn't look at people as, well, people. She basically looks at them as, a series of stats on a chart and, tries to find ways to connect people together. Now, in a lesser romantic drama, this would be, it would just be a film where she needs like just someone to kind of like pull her out of her stats and just, learns to love and not see people, just as like stats on a list. And the film does lean towards that, obviously, because it tries to focus on how, you can't just go through life like this. If you want to find someone you love, you need to see the world much differently. You can't just look at the world on an economic level, because if you do, you're not going to form more personal connections that way. But it's not an easy road. Like, it's not so simple as just like finding that right guy. And I think that's because like Lucy kind of like sets up this world where it's tough for her to accept that romance, because there are two men in her life that she's attracted to. One is a man that she meets at a wedding, Harry, played by Pedro Pascal, and he's a rich guy who basically looks at the world in the same way as Lucy. He sees, the advantages of like, taking on surgeries to change your appearance. He sees, the appeal that women have from making a lot of money, and, having a very spacious apartment, which is great to take women back to. And, he's done like the math himself and has determined that Lucy is perfect for him, while Lucy is kind of like, forcing Pedro off, saying, no, I'm too analytical. You're not going to like me. And Harry's like, no, I get it. You see the world this way, and I can see that world too. And it's kind of interesting because it's like, for someone who just sees the world through money, about just being economically stable, Harry and Lucy seem perfect for each other. But then, of course, there's the other man in her life, which is John, played by Chris Evans, who is a struggling actor. He doesn't make that much, and he's a little bit more blunt with his emotions and, has a lot more passion. Now, obviously, it would seem like John is the likely choice for Lucy to go to, realizing that money isn't everything. And it does kind of lean towards that, but but like I said, it doesn't take the easy route here. It makes this a very like earnest depiction of, looking at romance through the lens of, through like a capitalist lens, and the coldness that comes with it, and the kind of realization that you need to look for more beyond just, the height and the hobbies and the ethnicity and the hair color and all that. You need to look beyond all that if you want to find someone that you truly connect with. And having that love triangle present here, I think, it's interesting because it's one that I feel like that Lucy kind of has to go more on a singular journey of her own to try to like come to that realization. And she gets that through a few people. Like there's her boss Violet, played by Marilyn Ireland, who, she's been through like the matchmaking service before, and she kind of like gives Lucy a previous like, look, in this profession, there's going to be problems. Like, you might think you have the perfect numbers, but you won't always. You are going to make mistakes. And at one point, Lucy does make a big mistake with one of her clients, Sophie, played by Zoe Winters. And it is just, I won't reveal what it is here, but it is just so tragic and forces Lucy to see people on a more personal level rather than just their worth. And the thing is, like, you know, it'd be so easy to make like Lucy and John and Harry into such, like, you know, simplistic vessels for like the type of romance that's being weaved here. But the fact that these characters are so ingrained in their lives and so focused on, you know, their innermost goals, I think that it just makes them so much more relatable to that degree. Because I love the way that kind of Lucy kind of like views herself as a little bit cold, because you get that in the way that she, you know, talks about people behind their backs, how she views the world, how she interacts with her clients. Everything has this very sterile, cold nature to it. And the fact that she realizes it too creates this very, you know, earnest portrait of a woman just trying to figure out what is the best route for love in the age where it feels like, you know, especially if you're living in New York City, everything economically matters more than anything else. And I think that's the best way to recommend The Materialists, is like, this is the type of romance film for somebody who looks at all these like rom-coms and romantic dramas that happen in New York City, and the only thing they can think about is, oh man, how much did that apartment cost? How much did that food cost? Why are they going out to this restaurant? How could they afford all this? Where's the money for all this? And the thing is, that is very much at the forefront of Lucy's mind in everything that she navigates through her life. And I think that's probably one of the most refreshing angles that Celine Song takes of this material. That being said, though, she doesn't shy away from trying to make the film genuinely romantic, I think, by like caring about these characters. There are several scenes, much like in past lives, where she'll just let the camera linger. She'll just let a long passage happen where we're either just like Lucy or Harry are just at dinner, and they're, you know, being blunt about what they're looking for in a relationship and how they view the world. And it's just fascinating to just like not cut away from that. Just let the camera zoom in very slowly as they just kind of, you know, open up and showcase more of themselves, and just let that kind of, you know, let those thoughts linger in the air a bit before the conversation can continue. And I love the way that just it lets these characters breathe in a film like this. I don't think now, of course, the obvious comparison will be, is this film as great as past lives? And I think it really isn't. And I don't mean that to make the film, I don't say that to make the film sound terrible. The film actually is really good. I love it. But I adored Past Lives because I felt like it was tapping in to something deeper here. And it feels like Materialists is kind of trying to be a balance of showcasing like the darkness of greed that comes within, you know, how you try to find the perfect relationship, while also still adhering to like a lot of like the similar tropes, but still playing with them, still trying to figure, okay, you know, if these characters are going to end up together, well, let's tinker with it a bit. Let's make that road a little bit rockier. Let's see if we can not just make it like a storybook romance, and see if we can make it just a little bit more real while still trying to, like, you know, find like a happier route for Lucy to get to in the end of this film. And it does take some major swings here, like the bookend of this film and how it tries to like tackle the material nature that comes with romance, I think is a little bit too big of a swing. I think it takes you out of the film a little bit, and you kind of think, oh man, is this going to be like a little bit more like Tree of Life in what they're going for here? And thankfully it is. And thankfully it becomes like this little, just, you know, little highlight about, you know, contemplating the history of relationships and how they've progressed for so long. And now that we're at this point in time where we kind of look at romance through like a much different lens. We look at it, you know, through apps and how we relate to each other, you know, through like social media, and how we view each other perhaps more through numbers than our words, and just, you know, and just contemplating more of that, and like the difficulties that come with trying to find just the right person. Like, she, you know, Lucy's whole deal is that she promotes like this business model where she can find the perfect someone just through math, and you know, math might not be enough. Sometimes, you know, as corny as it sounds, yeah, you know, you need more than math to, you know, fall in love. Thankfully, that's not on the poster or anything like that. And great use of the actors here. Like Pedro Pascal, I think, is just has this very natural undertone to him that makes him kind of seem like the perfect match for Lucy. Chris Evans is, I like seeing him get a little bit more like hostile and a little bit more emotional, and just have a lot more like passion in him. Like he's very blunt in a lot of scenes, that almost like to the detriment of, him trying to rekindle this romance with Lucy. And it's fascinating to watch that unfold between these two characters who feel like there are greater forces keeping them apart. Like, yeah, money's a factor, but there's a lot more to it than that. And I would say, like, that might be a negative of the film, is like, I wish it explored a little bit more, but I think for just keeping the lens on just like how hard it is to date and to find someone you love when you view the world through all these specifics. I think it's a fascinating angle that makes Materialists such a good film. So yeah, for Celine Song's second film about romance, she does a pretty damn good job, and I look forward to seeing what she does next. So yeah, Materialists makes a great use of Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. It's a wonderful love triangle that goes some places that I didn't expect. A few places that I did for what Song can film. A few of her hallmarks are here. But you know what? For a love triangle, it's very rare to see a film this contemplative and emotional and this real with what it's trying to say. So yeah, I absolutely adored Materialists.